Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Bert 91. Listen, we're just giving you a quick live video. In fact, this is going to be an opportunity for people to come and have their say. All right. Now, the topic I've put up on the screen, as you can see by the title, I've said LBB is hard on black women. Have your say. Now, before anybody asks, you know what? I've seen obviously some comments in the comment section. I see in the four winds of corners of YouTube, people are starting to do little videos and at me, kind of, and not at me, you know what I mean? So we're starting to see a few things, right? But this actually is a conversation which I love to have because I think these are difficult conversations. Ooh, I think these are difficult conversations, but they're needed, right? Because if we're gonna be able to heal our community, we're gonna have to have these kind of conversations, right? And I'm happy to have it because actually, the same way I feel like I've seen some of the comments, I've also understood that at a time I was also somebody who was in the comment section typing stuff. So really want to have an open-ended conversation. I want us to do it live, do it for about 30-40 minutes, and then be able to have a conversation. So I want to be able to address a few things and really as well, like I said, have a real conversation as well. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of uploads. And for those of you returnees, really know what it is. You want the minerals. Oh, my water's done, cuz. Let's fill that up. All right, cool. So let's get into this particular live. Like I said, we've got a short amount of time. So if you want to come and have your say, I'm going to open up. I'm going to put this here so you guys can see it as well. Where is have your say commentary thing? Look at this. Yeah, if you want to have your say, come through. All right, cool. So yes, I want to have this conversation because what I've seen, this isn't just the season. I saw it last season when we had a conversation around Paige and Chris as well. Okay. And I want to be honest. I have to be honest. I'm aware that the market, when it comes to black people and how we feel, is a very nuanced market, right? Because like for me personally, the UK is different to American market, right? So sometimes when I'm seeing things, I won't see it the same way that maybe people across the pond will see certain things, right? So for instance, when we're talking about this season and last season, talking about Chris and Paige and talking about obviously Zach and Michaela, it becomes race war really quickly, right? So last season we saw, obviously, I think I said, oh, I don't personally find Paige attractive, because everyone was saying Paige attractive. I was like, no, I don't think I don't find it that way. Before I knew it, bro, I had everybody saying you're a colorist, you're this, you're that, and I was like, whoa. I was like, yo, guys, that's not what we are about here. I'm not about that. But I did understand. I did have some grace to understand that the market in America is not the market in UK, right? Because our histories are similar but different, right? For instance, like I said, I am the first generation after my parents have come from Africa. We have a lineage, we have history, we have a pathway to where we're coming from, and I understand for the American market, it's different, right? We have African Americans, and we even have Africans in America. You know what I mean? So we have different, we have different ways of seeing things sometimes, and some of the conversations are polarized. And unfortunately, because we have different perspectives, sometimes we assume that someone being black is the same black as we see on this side. Or if we say, we can even sometimes go the other side and say, because you're not from America black, you see things differently, right? So sometimes there are cultural differences that we have in amongst these conversations. I had a bit of spit there. That was dangerous, bro. And we have different kind of cultural differences, which makes a lot of sense, right? So we have those situations. And I think this season specifically, what we saw on this season is that we had a real battle around Zach and Michaela, right? a real battle around Zach and Michaela. And I think it was such an interesting battle because I think even me, I'll be honest, I got lost. I got lost in the battle, right? And it was a real eye opener to look back over the conversations that had happened around Zach and Michaela, right? So we had almost like three sides. We had three sides. We had people that were in the middle for Zach and Michaela. We had people on the left-hand side who were for Michaela. On the right-hand side, those were for those were for Zach, right? And there were battle lines that were drawn instantly. Yeah, there were battle lines drawn instantly. As soon as we saw the behavior from Michaela, what we got was two sides, right? And I like I said, I can talk from my side specifically. As soon as we saw and I'm gonna call it what it is, abuse, right? Because that's what it was, right? As soon as we saw the Hurricane K coming out and everything like that, and we were all waiting for it to happen, and we could see parts of it happening. Battle lines were drawn. I know my battle lines were drawn. My battle line was drawn. My battle line was to say, hey, okay, we want to be able to say, look, men too get abused, right? We wanted to explain that, hey, men get too abused, right? And so what happened was then battle lines got drawn. I know my battle lines got drawn, right? Because as soon as I realized people are not even trying, they're trying to make Zach not a victim in the situation by what we were seeing. That's just by what we were seeing. I still think he's a victim in the sense that he experienced abuse. Does not mean that he couldn't also abuse Michaela as well. So, at first, I put my hands up. I already said that I apologized in my apology video that, hey, you know what? I remember when I think it was when I had Layla and a few others, Lin and a few others, and they were like, you can have both. And I was like, no, you can't have both. Not in this scenario. Not in this situation. You can't have both. Right? So I was very intent on saying you can't have both in this situation, right? Because I got personally invested, and then I started being less objective and being far more emotive, right? Because as soon as you start being more emotive, you miss the situation, right? As soon as you get more emotive, you miss what you're really looking at, right? And I saw someone comment a thing. I'd actually experienced a situation where a woman had been abusive, right? But in my situation, like I said, because of what I knew, I kind of handled it a little bit. I handled it way different than what Zach was kind of doing, right? But I also was open to the fact that, you know what, maybe he handles things differently, right? So I was not even saying I was biased. Can you say projecting? I was putting myself I was projecting because I was putting myself into the Zach situation, and then I wasn't being objective with the information I was seeing, right? Okay. So now when now we're having our conversations, right? And I think back to those moments, you get lost because what you're now seeing is someone saying, no, that's not happened. But it's not about Zach, it's about you. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? It wasn't about Zach. It's about me. So from my perspective, what I was seeing with Zach, not that I was even seeing him necessarily as a victim, it's more of a case of saying, hey, I've gone through it. I know what abuse looks like. Like us men too get abused, right? So if you invalidate this situation, you're actually invalidating all men across the board, right? So it was so interesting to now look back at it because that's a projection, right? And that's why I couldn't see the other side of the coin. That's why I couldn't see his behaviors as as being at first at least sneaky, right? Because I think back to a point where I kind of ignored the evidence, or at least I didn't take the evidence on board that I needed to. And I think it was a conversation with him and Michaela, and where Dr. Viviana came in and spoke to him, right? And when he was going on like he was perfect, right? So in that scenario, I think I would have been, if I'd been less emotive about the situation, less consumed and less projected in that situation, that would have been, that'd have been my first red flag to be like, all right, brother, okay, let's look at things a little bit deeper. Do you know what I'm saying? Let's look at things a little bit deeper. And by the way, there are men that are far more seemingly weaker when it comes to situations like this. It doesn't mean they're necessarily manipulative, but it can come across as manipulative if it's on a certain particular light, right? So yeah, the crying, like I said, it's interesting because at the very beginning of the season, myself and Sean mentioned about this whole crying situation. How is he going to handle someone like Michaela, who's going to be really, really strong, right? And then obviously when we saw the behavior from Michaela, right, that's when we're like, okay, you know, gotta stand in this one now and defend it, because people are saying he can't be a victim because he must be doing something. I think this is where the battle lines are drawn from both sides, right? Um, the battle signs are drawn from both sides, where you start to realize that, okay, so the other side is kind of saying we see, um we're seeing that, okay, Michaela's done something, but we're not going to say she's done something. We're going to say that Zach is the primary cause for it. And as you know, when that's why I called it victim blaming, because it's like what we were seeing, right? Was a perfect example of just saying, okay, someone's been abused. Why are we not taking it as a person who's been abused? He must be doing something. Now, of course, now look back at it, uh, you can say there are one or two different situations where we can say potentially he had a more hand in it, right? But there are also situations in Michaela and Zach's situation where we're like, no, there's no provocation that allows for that behavior, right? For instance, there is no provocation for Jose to behave the way he does, right? There's none. You just can't do what you do. And it's the same for Michaela's situation. There's some one or two we can say, okay, maybe da 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 da. But there are other provocations where we're like, no, you can't do that. You just can't, right? But you know, you know, and Tori, you're absolutely right. This is very, very true. That again, and this is why I was saying this is conversations are really important, because what you'll realize is the feeling inside of myself. For instance, I'm a justice warrior. I like to fight for those who are the ones who are the ones who are the ones who, how do we call it, underdog. I'm a person that fights for the underdog, because I know how it is to be an underdog. So I'm always trying to fight for the underdogs. Why I do what I do a lot of times, right? I'm like, nah, that can't run. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. And I was seeing Zach as the underdog now, right? Because I'm seeing different things like, nah, Zach must be triggering her. Zach must be doing this. Zach must be doing that. He must be doing this to get her to behave the way she's behaving. And so as soon as I'm seeing all of that, my underdog energy is like, no, got to defend this. And at that point, when I'm like, no, I got to defend it, right? Usually there's a buck stop for me, right? There's usually a buck stop for me. Uh, but the buck stop wasn't there this time. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? It wasn't there this time. And I think the difference here is that there were so many conversations each week, about the situation. There was conversations each week about whether Zach had been abused each week. So it's almost like you're being reset. And so I found myself back into that position of when we're trying to fight again, fight again, fight again. And what it did is that it made me bury myself even deeper to try and defend it rather than looking at his behaviors. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? Exactly, Tor. I love that. Exactly. Um, and so you completely miss it, and then it becomes about the cause and the fight, right? It becomes about defending this post when there are elements of truth in both sections. Like there are two things can be true at the same time. Do you know what I'm saying? So, and then also I saw the experts not addressing the issue. And I was like, why are they not addressing the issue? Right? We can see how Jose was done by the end of the season, and we can see how Michaela was done by the end of the season. And it's like little things like that. It's like, oh, that's what I saw. I was like, and obviously that was happening through the course of the season. Um, and so you kind of miss some of the highlights of his behavior, or at least miss questioning the highlights of his behavior. Um, I it was, and so it was problematic, right? And someone said a very good point here. So someone said obviously the major outburst by Michaela was the one next to the final episode. We just knew it was coming. Nothing else this season really displayed her abused by her, but each week he was very manipulative. Again, I think that's partly true, because obviously we were given the fact that she was called Hurricane, right, from the very very beginning. But it's intriguing that people who defend Michaela and say she was triggered by Zach never had any evidence, but were okay saying he was abusive, right? Like you've given an example here, right? There isn't, by your examples, nobody proves that Zach necessarily was triggering Michaela, apart from the very end. We're in the same boat. This is what I'm saying about this whole situation. They're very accusal of only seeing it one side as not getting it right. It's the exact same thing with the Michaela situation. People are going on intuition, right? The same way when they saw the Zach situation. And for instance, when we see, for instance, her behavior, the blow up that happens when he doesn't come home. What how do you describe that? How do we prescribe? Do you know what I'm saying? The blow up when he doesn't come home, all right? Even if he ignores her for 3 hours, even if he ignores her for 3 hours, right? The blow up is unnecessary. The leaving of the household is unnecessary, especially if you've already said what abusive behavior is. And that's what made me bury the hatchet even more, right? That's what made me bury the hatchet even more. I'm like, yo, she already done told us what her behavior, what abusive behavior would be like. She told us herself, look, she talked to the family, she talked to the family, and said this, etc., etc. So now, when that happens, you focus on that because that's what you're seeing, and so you don't really get to see Zach's necessary behavior. And I think, like I said, it's the crying. Is that really evidence of manipulation? It can be, but it wasn't really a heavy signal, right? It wasn't really a heavy signal. It's a bit like the Miller situation. A lot of Miller's behaviors, right, were into the way that, let's say I can say I felt maybe, and some of the other people felt about Miller, was really about intuition, right? It was more about intuition in terms of what we were seeing, but we were kind of being intuitive in terms of what we were seeing. So, uh, you know, someone said I need to remove reformed from the title. Lol. So, uh, so in that sense, in that sense, what we're seeing in the situation is that we were all kind of being intuitive with both Michaela and Zach. For instance, the defense of Michaela and also the defense of Zach. Um, again, I'm not saying the women were wrong. They were right, obviously, what they saw. So I'm only kind of giving an explanation in terms of what we're kind of seeing. So, if you look at obviously then as the season progresses, right? As the season progresses, we're getting more situations where we're hearing of her behavior once more. So it's only going to forever reinforce the bias that I have. For instance, the party situation, right, where she cancels a party, right? And there's another blow up there. Um, you know, and when we see that blow up from her again, you're digging deeper again, and then you're seeing people saying, "Nah, it must be him. It must be him. Must be him." That he's doing something. So it just makes you bury the hatchet even deeper, right? Um, so it's throughout the whole season there are, and again, see, and this is why the word accountability is important, right? Because what I can say is, right, irrespective of whether people were saying something different to me and I felt like they were coming from an angle, it doesn't make a difference. My reaction is still my reaction. Accountability still has to come on my action, right? It still has to come on my action, right? Now, and I'll just put this out here. even if Zach was cheating, which by the way, I think he was cheating. Even if he was cheating on Michaela, the reaction still doesn't quantify, right? Like, listen, if a woman's cheating on a man and a man slaps a woman, we're gonna say that that force is excessive. You cannot say because you're triggered that you can behave anyhow. The same way I'm holding myself to account by saying it doesn't matter if the other side was saying to me, Zach wasn't abused, wasn't a victim, and then I end up missing it. There's still accountability on my part to say it doesn't matter what they did. I still should have been objective enough to see both sides of the table. Once I'm no longer objective, it doesn't matter whether they triggered me or not, because your offense is your offense, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Right. So in the same way, that's why I'm holding Michaela to this particular to the same um standard. Shania said, I think the only reason when the women defended Kay the way they did is because the men weren't listening. They also said that Kay was abusive, but the men couldn't hear because they were Zach warriors. So this is a really good point that I love. I love to talk about, because the same way that the women felt that they weren't being listened to is the same way the men weren't feeling they were listened to. And this is why I'm saying it's such an important conversation, because this is exactly what happens in our community. You think we're not listening. I think you're not listening. But someone's got to give up first. You think we're not listening. I think the women were not listening. But someone's got to give up first. Right? Somebody has to give up first. Right? So what we witnessed in the last few weeks on the channel was exactly what happens in our community. Neither side wants to give up. So for both sides are wrong. Right? Both sides are wrong, which is why when I realized I was wrong, I decided to apologize, not so that people can, someone was saying, I'll be using the word of God to try and basically maneuver people and try to convince people, not because of that, but because who's going to go first, right? Who's going to go first? If both parties are seemingly holding on to the situation, right? Who's going to go first? And so it was a perfect example of why in relationships specifically, why we fight and why we break up and why we don't last long in relationships, because in that moment, in that moment, both sides were feeling that they were right. So AW put this comment here. Look, plenty of women were not defending. There were a lot of women also not defending Kay. There were, right? There were, but there were also a lot of women who were defending her. They're still doing it now. They're still doing it now. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. See, so again, there are both sides of the issue. See, you will think that there's one side that is free from having a judgment. No. No. This is why I said I'm apologizing first, because in order to be able to broker the peace between the two sides, someone has to say, we're going to lay down the tools. Otherwise, it's going to keep on being a fight, right? It's going to keep being a fight. Yeah. And so that's why it's such an important kind of conversation to be having around this. And it's good because like I said, it highlights where each of us are coming from, right? So for instance, when we're talking about behaviors, right? This behavior, the confirmational bias, is yes. Okay, this is good. This is good part. I think they just wanted Kojo to acknowledge their point of view. The women were saying Kate is abusive, but Kojo was more like it doesn't matter what Zach does, rather that Zach is doing, but Kate is abusive. Yeah, I mean, there's a part of that that's very true. Such a the part of that is very, very true. Here, where you say, obviously, they wanted Kojo to acknowledge the point of view. Yeah, they did want me to acknowledge the point of view. And again, see, I wanted to do it, but I got lost. I wanted to acknowledge it, but because what, and this is why I kept on explaining it each week. If you say Zach's not a victim, but yet you're seeing what you're seeing on the screen, do you know what I mean? So I'm now going to bury my hatchet. I'm like, well, I can't see what you're saying because I'm now focused on trying to defend that point. And that's what I'm saying to you. It doesn't matter why I stood firmly in my ground, because at the end of the day, the action that comes out is going to be one that is not beneficial, right? So now both of us are standing there with our forks in our hand and our swords and our shields, right? And neither side is going to back down. Do you know what I'm saying? The women saying they wanted acknowledgement. We wanted, the men also wanted acknowledgement. Where do we go? Where do we go? We wanted people to say Michaela was abusive without saying, but Zach though. We wanted the woman to also, and so that's what I'm saying to you. Both sides will keep on saying that until someone decides to lay down the tools first. Right? Now, someone asked, did the men want an apology? Do the men expect an apology? I don't expect an apology in return, right? I don't expect an apology in return, right? For instance, what happened with the Miller situation, right? The Miller situation, just to kind of branch off, right? How many people were defending Miller? How many people didn't realize Miller would do what she would do? Mm? I'll address your comment, Brittany, as well. I'll address your comment. But how many people got the Miller situation wrong? How many people were defending Miller? The same thing happened to the men. It's the same thing happened to the ladies, and it's not all women, and it's not all men, by the way. It wasn't the same. People were, people people had their thoughts about Mela, and when as men we expressed it at the very beginning, we were shut down. When we said her behavior is off key and that cold behavior, people were saying, well, she's a woman, she's allowed to have her standards. We were shut down. So the same way you felt the same way about the Zach situation, it's the exact same way, all right, we felt about the Miller situation. And listen, if you're not the one that defended Miller, it's not you we're talking about, right? If you're not the one that defended, don't worry, you're not the one we're talking about. She said she's gonna red bottoms do that. So and that's okay. And this is what I'm trying to say to you. Like, look, when Nick said she was willing to die on the Miller Hill, and that's AC, and this is, I want to say this as well. I had also some women also in the comment section of the Miller video apologize too. But I had some panelists also come out and apologize behind the scenes too, right? So, these situations we get them wrong sometimes, right? We get it wrong sometimes, and we get caught up. Yes, Stefania, we get caught up sometimes in the man versus woman situation, right? And both parties suffered. It wasn't just a man thing. Some women got caught up in that too, right? And so it's such an interesting thing to kind of look back on and see. Do you know what I mean? So do the men expect an apology in no, don't worry, I can't turn to Black Manosphere, don't worry, Godson, don't worry, we're not going to turn to Manosphere here, don't worry. I don't agree with their behaviors. But do the men expect apology? No. But if this is a relationship, how much can your apology do? So much, right? Like myself and Sean, we said this a few weeks back. We said one of our panelists came out and said, sorry, they missed the behavior, right? And we said, you know what? That instantly lowered all our defenses. Ears were open, right? So I'm not saying that has to be women that do it first. I'm saying to you that an apology, if you got it wrong, is nice. In fact, it probably should be your go-to. I'm not expecting it, but if you're a kind of person that you get something wrong and you can't apologize, I'm looking at you different. Do you know what I mean? If you got it wrong, then I'm looking at you different. Like if you defended Miller and then Miller does what she does, right? And then you say that there's no apology there, then I'm gonna look at you different too. I don't have to say it. But I will look at you differently, right? And the same way that I expect you're going to look at me differently if the whole entire season I end up defending Zach. And then at the end of it, I'm like, well, it is what it is. Yeah, it is what it is, isn't it? At the end of the day, you win, you lose, right? You're going to look at me some way because you're going to realize that when it comes to being wrong in a situation, I can't admit my wrongs. This is why I decided to do the videos. Someone said they'll apologize when Sean apologizes. uh, oh man, that's hilarious. You know, so I get that. I get that. You know, and this to Britney's point, that the ladies on the panel acknowledged you though. So again, we're at the same place, but you didn't. That's the point. Some of you didn't. You're assuming that you did. We told you behind the scenes that you didn't. That's why we had this conversation after, right? And I explained it even on the live. I said, when you do, I think Michaela's bad, but you know what? Zach is the one that's. I said, when you put the button there, what you're really saying is you're negating everything she's just done as a reason being that Zach did something. That's why she did what she did. So the panelists didn't get it the right way. We were all at fault. That's what I'm trying to say to you. We were hearing you defending it, or not you per se, Britney per se. We were hearing points that were defending it, and you were hearing points of us that were definitely defending it, right? And that causes I'm gonna stick in it. I'm gonna stick beside him. You know, I'm gonna stick beside him. I'm gonna stick beside him. And so that's, you know, this is really is a good it's a good conversation to have, because like I said, you start to realize that you can easily get caught up. You can easily get caught up easily, and miss the original point, which was that there is behavior that we're analyzing, right? So it's a big you know, turning point. It's a big turning point, right? Or I say lesson, because it's a momentous time where I can look back at it and go, "Raw, let's not do that again." Let's not get caught up in just you know, the concept of male versus females. Let's not do that. Let's not draw sides just because we feel the way we feel about this particular situation, you know. And so I want to address this point here. So this there's a point here. Yeah, I love this Felicia. It was about being right. It was about being right rather than actually, you know, delving deeper to try and get us to kind of see each other's sides. Absolutely right. It was about being right. You know, I don't want this part here. Let's see. Where is the part I wanted to see? Check it. The part, yeah. That's good. I love this Sharon as well. Yeah, there was too much focus on being right and being a victim rather than looking at deeper. I actually believe that. Yeah, that is a very true. Blind loyalty is problematic. You have to tell people when they are wrong. Absolutely. Someone says, oh man, I'm hearing that. I'm hearing that. I can't find a clip point, but there was a point that someone put here about am I being more difficult, which is exactly what I'm talking about in the video. Am I being more difficult on the women? Your focus is always how the women move, and it's cool. It's cool. My focus is not how the women move, because last season when we did Married at First Sight, I called Chris all sorts of names underneath the sun. I mean, I was tearing him a new one when it came to his behavior last season, right? When it came to the behaviors with Chris last season, I tore him a new one. When it came to Eric last season, I tore him a new one, right? I also defended him at certain points, but I tore him a new one last season, Eric, yeah? I got onto Ryan. In fact, I had an unpopular opinion about Ryan. I didn't like the fact he was withholding sex and doing all this nonsense. We gave him smoke. Bruh, listen, we laced Ryan last season. Last season we absolutely smoked them as well, and then we smoked Virginia last season as well. 'Cause Virginia was moving mad. We, we absolutely smoked Virginia too. Yeah, so it was crazy. Who else do we have? Clara got a little bit, but she didn't get too much last season. Who else did we have? We had Haley and Old Boy, and we smoked. Listen, some of us were still smoking Old Boy. Listen, we liked what's his name, the hench one, right? We liked Old Boy, the hench one that was with Haley. We liked him, right? But he still got smoked because some of his behaviors were like, it was a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, so it was like, we got a bit of smoke on each side. So it was interesting. And then this season, I think, yes, I said, this season we got to see Zach, and I totally missed the ball on Zach. So I have to take the flack on that one. I have to take the heat on that one. I totally missed Zach. And that's what can happen when you project, right? When you project in that scenario and you don't take your time, right? Because what some of the language I was using was very definitive, right? When there was still some evidences of other behaviors being brought in. But was I hard on Michaela? Of course, I was hard. I was as hard on Michaela as I was on Johnny, and I was on Jose, right? To this day, Jose gets my smoke. To this day, you know what I mean? I give him smoke. To this day, I give Jose smoke. I can't let him go free. I'm sorry. I'm never gonna be satisfied until them two split. Like, you know what I mean? I can't I can't let his thing go, bro. You know what I'm saying? I can't. And it's Jose one is different, guys. Yeah, for what he did, we can't let that go. You understand? So yeah, Jose got smoke, and we had to hold him to that. And Miller only really got my smoke at the end. Like, I didn't like the way she was behaving, but then at a time I was like, I kind of started liking Miller as well. She started showing some signs of being warm and being open, and so my reviews were a bit more nicer. I was like, no, like, I like it, I like what Miller's doing. And then at the end, when I realized you've been lying the whole entire time, nah, fam, you go and get the serpentine. You go and get the serpentine edit because you're moving like a serpent. Yeah? Moving like a serpent. You joined Chris from last season with a serpentine energy. I had to call it. You know what I mean? I had to call it. I had to call it, because it was, it was a lot, so like, she won me over. I'm not even lying to you. She won me over to a point, like, Miller. So I'm saying Miller was dragged all season. Not like Michaela. Not like Michaela. Miller was definitely given some passes. If you see some of her reviews, I give her some good now passes. I actually give her some nice reviews. Halfway in, I give her some nice reviews. I said, "Oh, is Miller warming up now?" I said, "Oh, okay." We are starting to see. And I was defending her at one point, saying, "No, but guys, look how she's touching her hand. Look how he's touching her hand. Look how she's being more huggy. Look how she's doing." I even had to cuss Gil out because he was doing too much talking. Yeah, he was doing too much talking in the open spaces. You know what I mean? So it was like, yeah, I started feeling Miller. I was like, "Oh, Miller." I said, "Oh, Miller's starting to come around." Right? And then decision day. I had to let her loose. I had to let her loose. I had to let her loose. And I was like, I should have listened to my instincts. When I saw what I saw, I should have listened to the instincts and stayed on it. But I wanted to shift because I saw the evidence of shift, right? I saw the evidence was different. Yeah. And I felt like there was a little bit of a shift. So why not? Why not have a bit more openness for Mila, towards it? And then towards, like I said, at the end, that was it. I cut all ties at that point. I said, nah, cuz dunnage. Done, you're right. You know, I hear this, Sasha. I would say this. If I started showing empathy towards Jose, would you have felt that? Would you have accepted that? Like when it comes to abuse, you know, we're saying obviously show that empathy, but I'm like with Jose, no one gave that empathy to Jose. Nobody gave Jose any empathy for his behavior because we don't give empathy for abuse. I'm sorry, I can't. Right? I can't give you any empathy for abuse when you've done it. Right? You get held accountable and you get shown the way, and then we can deal with it. Right? Do you know what I'm saying? That's it. There's only been one black man who's been abused. So I get what you're saying, Sasha, but there's only been one black man that you've seen has been abused. When Michael was moving mad with Mecca, I cussed his claw out. When Brandon was moving mad with Taylor, I cussed both of their asses out. Okay, right? Chris was moving mad. I cussed his ass out. Where was the empathy for Chris? Where was the empathy for Chris? There was none. You never asked me to have empathy for Chris because you understood that it shouldn't be any empathy. There was no empathy for Michaela's behavior. I don't have empathy for people who have abusive tendencies. I know you bluffing. Now I know you bluffing. You definitely bluffing. You definitely bluffing. You definitely bluffing. You definitely bluffing. Come on now. Come on. We gave Jose so much smoke. People got tired of giving him smoke. We were so tired of giving him smoke. We stopped giving him smoke. Even Resident Seaway at the end was even tired of saying her smoke. We had given him that much smoke. We were all choked out. You know what I'm saying? Right? So listen. Shan said she's not sure why she didn't like Taylor. Taylor was moving mad. That season, Taylor was moving mad. Yeah. Taylor was moving mad. That season, Taylor was moving mad. And so was Brandon. Yeah. Brandon absolutely got her right. And listen, go back and you'll see my reviews. I finished both of them. Both of them were problematic. Now, that was what I think that's what when you see that, right? When we see that with Brandon and Taylor, I think that's what I imagine when you see two people that are manipulative, right? Because that season was two people being manipulative. Yo, that's it though. Both of them were manipulative, both Brandon and Taylor, manipulative in the same relationship. It was crazy. 1 week you're here, 1 week you're here. 1 week you're here, next week you're here. This part you're saying, Brandon, you're overreacting. Next part you see Taylor doing something mad. You say, hey, these two, they don't have sense, right? And so yeah, that was part of that so but I like I said, it's an important conversation we have, and that season was wild, bro. Michael Mecca that season too, and see that season I gave Michael unlimited smoke. The only smoke I gave Mecca was the fact that when she talks is very, and that's her, you know what I mean? But I was like, yo, you kind of gotta chill on that a little bit. But Michael, he was a goddamn liar. Okay, all right. He was a habitual liar, right? And we called him out all season. Katie and Derek called out Katie all season, right? For her terrible behavior. Terrible. Terrible behavior. You know what I mean? It was crazy. It was crazy. So, but yeah, guys. Sorry, I didn't even check my email if anyone said they want to come on. Okay. Do you know what? I'm so sorry, I just saw your message now. I just saw your message now. I'm so sorry. My time is even up. I apologize. Light. My bad. I've done it twice now. Light, I'm sorry. I've literally ended it and then seen lights on this thing. I'm so sorry. Yes, Luke is mad. Yeah. Am I doing any tea? Listen, I'm just gonna say this. Yeah. I'm actually gonna say this. I'm gonna say this. What I'm hearing for the grapevine, Okay. What I heard through the grapevine. What I heard through the grapevine is that Zach potentially, allegedly, potentially, allegedly. Okay. All right. And I want to say this as well, Anne. No one should be able to provoke you that you put hands on them. There's no excuse. Right? There's no excuse. You can't defend it. You put your hands on someone like that in the situation that you're in, there is no defense for it. I'm sorry. I know you feel your way you do, but someone putting hands on somebody, you can't do that. Anyway, now listen, let me just say this. What I'm hearing for the grapevine. What I'm hearing for the grapevine about Zach. Allegedly. 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 Okay? Allegedly. Okay? Allegedly. Allegedly. Call it what you want, Anne. Push, hit, call it what you want. You don't put your hands on anybody. Call it whatever you want. Allegedly. Zach. All right? Zach has been cheating during the whole process of the filming of the show. Allegedly. 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 That's what the grapes are telling me on the vines. And on that note, guys, like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification uploads. We appreciate you guys. It's peak. And I want to say allegedly, but I've seen the evidence. But allegedly, let me say one last thing. Allegedly, but I've seen the evidence. Zach did some really intense lies in between the situation. He denied stuff that clearly actually happened because there were evidences for it. But allegedly. 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 And when I say I'm talking about him doing it for the whole process, it wasn't Bao. Allegedly. 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 It wasn't Bao who was doing the thing with during the whole, apparently through the whole process of the season. But that's allegedly. That's allegedly. That's allegedly. On that note, guys, like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification uploads. We appreciate you. We will see you. We will see you again next season for the show. Yes, and my new name is Kofi as well, by the way, guys. You can call me Kojo or Kofi now. I've been rebranded, renewed, and renamed. And yeah, it's a tight one. It's a tight one. It's a tight one. Listen, be easy out here, okay? Be easy out here, guys. All right. We've all learned something now. Okay. Appreciate you guys. Little black book. You know what time it is.